Welcome to Crappy to Happy podcast, a special series on our Sacred Stories podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible stories of grit, grace, and love in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. I am your host, Rev Ariel Patricia, and together we will answer the question, do bad things happen to good people, or could the difficulties we face be gifts in disguise? Today we are speaking with Ellie Pechet, whose story in Crappy to Happy is titled, How Losing My Cats Turned into Turtle Blessings. Ellie Pechet is a metaphysician, medium, shaman, and author with 34 years of experience in the intuitive counseling, energy healing field. Ellie works successfully with clients all over the world and heals emotional and physical issues such as grief, depression, trauma, anxiety, chronic pain, and many other physical conditions. And so, welcome, Ellie Pechet, to Crappy to Happy.
Well, thanks, Ariel. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you're here. And I just want to give a shout out because you're also one of our Chaos to Clarity authors. And so one of your stories in Chaos to Clarity, and then you came back, which I'm so happy, and you have a story in Crappy to Happy now as well.
Yes. Well, I want to support the mission.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's a good mission. It's a good mission about sharing our transformational stories because I really think it brings hope and inspiration, to others, that they also can go through the process sometimes or go through the pain and find the gifts, on the other end.
Yeah, it's so important.
So your story is a beautiful story, and it is titled how my cats how my losing my cats turned into turtle blessings. Tell us the overall concept of the story and then dig in and give us the details, please.
Sure. Well, basically I went through a very rough time when the first cat got sick. Now, they both lived to be 20 and a half years old, and of course I was hoping they would make it to 21, 22, 23. First one, started to decline when she was 20, and that was Blue. And it was pretty stressful because despite the healings that I was doing on each of them, which actually helped prolong each of their lives by about 5 years, which is one of what Snickers told me at one point. Despite my healing work on them, it was their time. And so she got sick and it was very stressful. And then I helped her transition, and she had a very nice, peaceful transition. And we had prepared for that, which made a really big difference. She had been a little insecure about whether she and I would lose our connection, our heart connection. And so part of the healing work that I did with her was strengthening the connection between all our chakras. And that helped her feel more secure in letting go and moving on. So despite that, it was still very difficult. And then the second cat, Snickers, he was having a very hard time losing his beloved companion of 20 plus years, because I had them since they were kittens. And he also had a problem with his teeth. He refused to get a teeth cleaning. And then he got into a position where, the pain got so bad that he agreed to finally go. And so that was stressful. And he was in a lot of discomfort, again, despite the healings I was doing on him too. So this happened, over the course of about 5 or 6 months, first one and then the second one. And he transitioned a few days after his dental. So I was hoping that we were in the clear, but we weren't. And so my story in Crappy to Happy is about going from crappy, being, going through the process of them declining and doing everything I could to help them, but still being really torn apart as I witnessed their decline and then their transition. And, the time following their transition, especially the first few months, was very painful. So the way that I went from crappy at that point to happy was my transition was being able to hear them and to communicate with them from the other side of the veil. And that was very helpful. And I learned that, that they were both two of my main spirit guides, and that they had incarnated to be with me as physical companions in the form of cats for that 20 plus years. And it was a huge service to me. So my appreciation for them continued to grow and increase. And from those communications, I realized that they were going to be supporting my big work from the other side. And the first project that they helped me with specifically after they transitioned was the turtle sign project, which was this last spring, in helping me be successful getting 2 towns to cooperate in getting turtle signs placed on a bridge where I discovered a turtle crossing. So it went very smoothly, and they were a big part of that. So that was just a really wonderful scenario. And I know that their mission while they're in spirit at this point is to help me stay focused on my mission, which is increasing my work with collective large groups of wildlife that need it when they need it. And I can give you a few examples of that if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your story is really a beautiful example of how interconnected we are, not only with our animal companions when they're here with us in the physical, but when they do transition, and how there is really no separation, given that we are, open, right? Open and I think to receiving the communications. And I think that's the underlying message for me in your story, and one of the reasons that I was excited to have it in Crappy to Happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
But your larger work, so Blue and Snickers, right, and Ellie the turtle, which is what Chaos to Clarity story was about. Those are the animal companions that we have here now. But our communication or our connection doesn't just end with the domesticated animals or the ones we've domesticated, right? So you do work with larger animal groups and with animals in the wild, and so. I know that you've done some work with elephants in Africa, whales in the Atlantic, black bears in North Carolina, and even, like you said, your neighborhood turtles in Massachusetts. Can you give one example, pick one of those groups and give an example of what that work looks like?
Sure. I'd like to maybe highlight the project that I did with a group of black bears when I was living in North Carolina. So I had already worked on a few of the bears that were on the mountain that I lived on, and a couple of them were wounded by a mountain lion for trying to go after her kill, and a couple of them actually were shot by hunters, and I was able to heal them. And the way that I work with wildlife is often with a picture, a physical picture, which I had of the bears, or just connecting with them energetically, remotely. So with this particular group of bears, hunting season was around the corner, and it starts in November, I think November 1st. And there was an issue between the people that hunted on that mountain and a few neighbors that were, sympathetic to animals and supportive of animals. And so the hunters were really angry and really aggressive about wanting to, get the bears, even though there weren't that many up there. So what I did in that situation was I communicated with the bears and I sounded a huge alarm with like a flashing red neon sign, warning, danger, get out, get out, get out, get out. You need to relocate. And it was very intense. And I did it for about an hour, and they all heard the warning, and they all, well, except for one of them who was a little bit on the lazy side and liked being fed by one of the neighbors, which is how I connected with these bears to begin with. But anyway, except for the one, all the rest of them left. And I was also able to decrease their scent so that when the hunters would go out with their hunting dogs, they wouldn't be able to find them. They wouldn't smell them, and they would not be able to pick up their scent. And so they survived. They got out. They heard the warning. I decreased the scent, and they weren't killed. So that's one example of the work I do with wildlife groups of animals. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's really important to just kind of expand the awareness or open the awareness, to people who are listening, that this work on an energetic level is very real. It's very real, and sometimes even if we don't always see a direct physical manifestation of something immediately, that energetically a lot is happening, and it's important work. And so, Ellie, I'm happy that you're doing it, because you are affecting positive change in our world.
That's what counts. That's so important to me, Ariel, and thank you for acknowledging that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you also do, tying in with your story, you're very much of an activist, an advocate. You have a very open, caring heart, and so your way of showing up in the world also extends not only to your animal companions and then the larger animals in the wild, but you also do show up as an advocate and a healer for humans as well. And you've developed a process called Pechet healing technique, which helps people through grief, depression, anxiety, and other issues. Again, I know it's, we don't have a lot of time, but if you could just briefly explain what the Pechet healing technique is, and then also let me know, if our audience know, if that can be used with our animal companions as well.
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, in answer to your second question, I do use my technique with the wildlife groups. I also use it with clients' pets when they're having an emotional or physical issue. And of course I use it with humans. And what I do with people is I have them fill out a few forms that I send them. I have a master's degree in counseling, and the counseling background is very helpful in understanding different types of issues that people have, like depression, anxiety, grief, etc. And the intuitive part is when I'm scanning the forms that they send me back, I'll be drawn to what issues need to be healed in what order. And I work with most people by Skype or by phone, and I'll have their list, and I will heal and completely resolve an issue every session. And so the work is very efficient for my clients, and they start getting results, big results, starting with the first session. So I'll clear an issue, and then I'll do an imprint. Say someone comes to me and the first issue I need to clear for them is hopeless. I will completely clear hopeless, and it'll go from like a 9 or 10 down to a 0 to 1, and it'll stay. It doesn't have to be repeated. And then I will tune into them again, and they might need an imprint of being hopeful, full of hope. And if that's the case, that's what I'll imprint them with. And so I give them an affirmation, which will also help reinforce what I imprinted them with. And they feel deeply relaxed. They can enjoy the work in the comfort of their own home and let it continue to work. Let the healing energy continue to work as they're, sitting or lying down, deeply relaxed. And it's very nice. I get a lot of positive feedback.
No, it sounds wonderful. And Ellie Pechet, I just want to thank you for not only bringing your healing to both of our books, Chaos to Clarity and Crappy to Happy, through your stories, because, there is an energy in the word, right? And in reading your stories and in sharing your stories that way, you are sharing the healing, because both stories have a deeper message of healing in them. And thank you for the work that you do, in our physical world as well, through your healing work. Share your website and how people can find out more about you and support the work that you do.
Oh, thanks, Ariel. Sure. My website is phoenixrisinghealing.com. Again, phoenixrisinghealing.com. And sometimes people transpose the O and the E in Phoenix. So it's PHOENIX, and then rising, and then healing.com. And I try to make myself reasonably accessible, despite how busy I am. And so I do give my phone number, which is 508-237-4929. For any questions, I also offer a 15-minute consultation at no charge. So, I think the tie-in with my story, in Crappy to Happy, is grief, which, grief around people who have lost an animal, a pet, a beloved, companion. And I can heal that for them pretty quickly, usually in 1 or 2 sessions, so they do not have to continue to suffer, and they don't have to continue to grieve. That they can be at peace and realize all the blessings that their pet companions or their human companions brought them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So thank you, Ellie Pechet, for being our guest, sharing your story in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. Ellie's website, as she said, is phoenixrisinghealing.com, and I encourage you to check out Ellie's work on her website and also her story in Crappy to Happy.
Yeah, and there's also, as you had mentioned earlier, they can get more information about my work with wildlife or pets on the Healing Pets and Wildlife page. And if they would like to support my work, they can get more information there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And listeners, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy is available through Amazon and booksellers worldwide, or direct from Sacred Stories Publishing. So thank you for listening to our Sacred Stories podcast, to our special edition of our Crappy to Happy series. I am your host, Reverend Ariel Patricia. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to write your sacred story well.